The day has arrived. Welcome to Shannara Con, everyone. My name is Sean Speakman. I write science fiction and fantasy stories of my own, and I own the online businesses Assigned Page and Grim Oak Press. But I started all this wonderful madness by creating a Shannara dedication website in 1996. It's a long time ago, right? In 1999, that website became official. And because of that day, I am emceeing today's Shannara Con, and I'm really excited for what we have planned. Special guests, videos, a trivia game, and much more. A side note to begin though, some of you have finished The Last Druid already. I know this, I've seen you guys posting about it online. Please don't spoil the book for others in the chat. Thank you for being kind to the other fans. It means a lot. But feel free to comment and send your wishes into the chat, and we'll be taking a look at them. For my part, I've been a fan since 1988. When I was 13 years old, my mom brought home a battered paperback copy of The Sword of Shannara. A coworker had given it to her and for her to read, and I grabbed it. Who would have thought that day would lead to this one? While we all know the magic of the books, I'll just say that the author, his wife, and their family have welcomed me as one of their own. And in doing that, I've gotten to meet many of you watching today. Judine likes to say that her husband has the best fans, and she's right. You guys really, really are amazing. Now I welcome an author who has sold millions of copies worldwide, but more importantly, he's one of the kindest people I know. I give you Terry Brooks.
I had to press a couple buttons to get into the room with you there, but here I am.
There you are.
And how are you, Sean? And Sean has become my encyclopedia of all things Shannara, and that counts for a great deal. So my appreciation to him for the help he has given me over the years, it is immeasurable. I no longer look in my notes or go to the phone or anything. I just ask Sean by email, what's the answer to this question? And invariably he finds out. So that's a great thing to have happen.
Thank you, Terry. My pleasure.
Nice to be here. Cannot believe that this day has actually arrived. I sort of envisioned stopping years ago, but it's just sort of built on itself. And after a while, there were so many wishes for further stories in the world that I sort of felt like it was a betrayal of my readers if I quit. So here I am, 42, 43 years later, and 50 some years later since I started writing Sword of Shannara. So it's a rather surreal feeling, but also a very welcome one. Has Sean gone away? He probably has. So I guess what we're going to do now is I'm going to have a little discussion with Anne Grohl, and or is Sean coming back? Hard for me to tell. Anne, are you there? Are you coming in to discuss with me just a little while? Anne Grohl is my fourth editor in the many years that I've been writing with Del Rey, and she has been with me now for I think a little over 10 years. And she writes the most copious, picking notes on my stories, but also she is absolutely brilliant at picking out the flaws and helping me get through them. And as with every editor I've had, I owe her a huge thank you for getting me safely through all those books that I've written in the time that we've been together. And look at you. You look beautiful with green hair.
Thank you.
I've had more hair.
It's foreshadowing to something that the fans will learn about in a year. How about we say that?
Yes, nice to have you here.
It's such a pleasure to be with you here today to celebrate this amazing milestone. 29 Shannara books in 43 years. You launched the Del Rey imprint in 1977, the book that started it all, The Sword of Shannara. Since then, you've published in total with Del Rey. So first off, I wanted to just say congratulations on this amazing run, and most of it with a single publisher. So let's start by just saying, how does it feel coming to the end of such an amazing saga, one that's touched the hearts and imaginations of reached for generations.
Well, it's obviously it's extremely satisfying, and I ended it the way I wanted it to, which not everybody gets to say, but I get to say it. And I feel like the time I've given over to it has been worth it. Not a case of perhaps having given anything up to do it. I've enjoyed every book. I have felt proud about every book I wrote. I can truthfully say I haven't cheated anybody or not deliberately cheated a man in any case. And working with Del Rey, of course, has been at the backbone of my entire success story. Everything from the time of the Del Reys, Judy Lynn and Chet and Lester, and all the way through to where we are right now. So that's one feeling. The other feeling is I worry that people think, well, he's done. It was nice seeing him. I'm not actually quitting writing. I'm just not writing Shannara for a while, or I don't know, whatever. But instead, I want to do some other things, and I feel like whatever time I got left, that's something I should be doing. So taking advantage of that.
So The Last Druid came out on Tuesday. I know most of your readers are probably, okay, let's face it, they probably already finished it by now. But while we don't want to reveal any spoilers, what did it feel like writing that final line and knowing you had reached the place you had always wanted to get there all those many years ago?
Yeah, that was kind of key. That the overall circular storyline of the whole series, which was a confrontation and struggle between science and magic, was my end goal was to have some kind of a resolution involving that struggle. And it had played itself out where the Great Wars were the end of science, magic took over, then magic was eroded, distrusted, disliked, and felt to be elitist, and then slowly science crept back into the picture until by the end of the series, in the last 3 or 4 books particularly, we're addressing very directly the question of which one should be the dominant form of power, science or magic. And when I wrote, and I knew exactly, as you say, I knew exactly what I wanted that last scene to be, knew in general who I wanted it to be, if not the exact character at least, and I knew what the emotional impact I was hoping to capture would be for the readers. And I felt I got that job done pretty well. And you and I worked on it a bit, and I think you felt I got there too, and I was very happy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So was this the ending you had in mind from the very beginning of the series when you first wrote sort of Shannara, or is this something that came to you partway through writing? How long have you had this particular ending to the saga in mind?
Oh, I usually am working 5, 6, 7, 8 books ahead all the time because I'm a brilliant writer, and as a brilliant writer, I have these incredible thoughts that just come to me. Or I could tell you the truth and say I didn't have a clue when I wrote the first book that there would be a second book. Because, you know, when you're a struggling author and trying to get published, you write one book and you just get down and pray that somebody will like it well enough to want to publish it. And then when you get one done, you realize that, whoa, time to write another. And the first thing that Judy Lynn Del Rey said after that one came out was, well, so how's the second book coming? And I hadn't even started it, of course. I hadn't thought about it. And I said, it's great. It's coming along good. You know, I expect to have it done before too much longer. So yeah, I think I knew it probably about halfway through the series. I sort of knew what I wanted it to be and how it should turn out, but I wasn't sure how to put it together.
If you lift this up, I'll put this, you don't have to be.
Keep going.
You've been inhabiting and creating in this world for a huge amount of time, so much though that it must seem as real to you as your own in many ways. Do you have a favorite Shannara moment that you want to share with your fans, or something iconic that springs to mind when you think of Shannara?
Nah. Yeah, sure. I don't know. You know, there's so many different things that happened along the way. Seeing people dress up as the characters. I think that going to the conventions and meeting people who love those books. And I think the thing that really amazes me after writing 30 of these things is that people always like different books. You know, that when you talk to them about their favorite book, it's always different. Now, admittedly, everybody likes Sword and Elfstones, and I hear those the most probably. But on a regular basis, somebody comes up and says, "Well, book 3 in this particular series was pretty good. I really like that one best." And you want to say, "Why?" That's part of the series, but it's not even not. Well, I better not say it's not one of my favorites, but you know what I mean. It's just surprises me sometimes. And the same thing with characters. They will pick characters up that I don't even remember and say, "I really like what you did with that character." And I have to quick say, "Yeah, me too. That was really one of my favorites." All the time thinking, I'll have to call Sean because I don't remember that character at all. But I think that's what makes you feel like you've achieved something too, is that if people remember certain characters and those characters have not actually been your primary protagonist or antagonist in the story, but have been part of the building of the story, it makes you feel like you've done your job. And they're so invested in them that they're prepared, they're prepared to say, "Well, this character here was the one I really liked the best." And that's a great compliment.
Yeah. So you said, in your time of the 43 years at Del Rey, only 4 editors. Can you give us a list of who your editors have, and maybe tell us a little bit about your very first editor? I think was one of the biggest characters in the field.
I try not to talk about my other editors. That way I don't want to diminish your own standing, but all right, I'll talk about them a little bit. Yeah, I started out with Lester Del Rey and Judy Lynn Del Rey, who were a couple, married couple. And actually, Judy Lynn was the head of Del Rey Books at the time, and she was a science fiction aficionado and expert, and that was her area of expertise. And when Sword of Shannara came in, she didn't know what to do with it. So she just gave it to Lester. And at the time, they were thinking about whether they were trying to lure Lester to join the group. And as it happened, he liked that book well enough. He said, "Well, I'll take the job if I can make this my first book." And things you learn later, but at the time, I didn't have any idea. I just figured it was my own brilliance and the brilliance of the book which got me in there. But it turned out it really wasn't that. It was something about getting even with the industry in general. So, and then after that, after both of them were gone, Owen Locke was my editor for a few years, and Owen had been Judy Lynn's assistant, and we were sort of like more like buddies, I guess you would say, than anything else. And he spent a lot of time telling me, "Oh, this is perfect," and I said, "No, it isn't. Give me some notes. Do something here," and then he would. But we had a really nice, close relationship, and we're still in touch. And then after that, it was Betsy Mitchell. And I'm sure many people know Betsy Mitchell by reputation as well. And she's been a terrific force in the field for a very long time. And she was your immediate predecessor, of course.
Yep, was.
And it was interesting, too, because she quit. Her departure was fairly abrupt. And then I was told, "Well, you're going to have Anne Grohl as your new editor." And I said, "Oh," I said, "wait a minute, isn't she isn't she George Martin's editor?"
Yep.
And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I don't know about that. Am I going to be categorized as the next George Martin, or, how's this going to play out?" And I said, "Am I going to get that kind of leeway?" And they said, "I don't think so." So then you and I sat down, and I said, "I do not want you," I'll never forget this. We sat down for the first time, and I said, "I do not want you to give me a pass. I know that I am used to being edited heavily. I know I've been around a long time, but I don't want special favors. I don't want anything like that. I want to be edited hard." And she said, "You said, no danger of that." And then you said, and I said, "Well," and then you also said, "At least you'll be turning books in once a year. That'll be a change."
Yeah, and sometimes even twice a year. So you've been the shining light of wonder. I've loved every moment of it.
I think I came in as such a neophyte to the business. I had not written anything before. I'd never taken a writing course. I had no connection with anybody in publishing whatsoever. And here I am with that book. And I sort of said, "You are," and with good reason, "you are so lucky to be where you are. Do not abuse that." Pay attention to what other people with more experience tell you. Don't ever assume you've conquered this world and you can do anything you want, and write regularly. And that's actually what Lester told me too. He says, you have to publish on a regular basis in this business, and particularly in this field. And you can't take anything for granted about what's going to work and not going to work. And oh, by the way, when I tell you to do something, do it.
Well,
He said, and Judy
you were
Lynn was
well trained.
I know. And once Judy Lynn called me up after I'd turned in a book that Lester didn't like, and I, gave her my whiny, this is unfair, poor me. And she said, just read the notes he gives you and pay attention, let me know. And at the end, she says, always remember, Brooks. She always called me Brooks. Always remember, Brooks. Lester is always right. That was, I thought, oh, okay.
Yep. As we sit here at the end of Shannara, I don't want anyone thinking that this is the end for Terry Brooks. So, we had a whole plan lined up for the book that would follow Shannara. Then the pandemic hit and your editor was maybe a little slow in getting you comments. And you had nothing to do. And can you tell us what happened next?
When was this again?
Well,
just recently, I had turned in a book which had problems, and I think you and I both agreed it wasn't living up to what it should be. So, but then COVID hit, and so I was in lockdown on the beach with nothing to do because we had a couple of books already in that were going to come out, and I just decided, if I don't write something, I'm going to lose my mind. So I sat down and began work on a new book, what I thought could be the start of a new series, but I was only interested in doing one book. So I did it and wrote it in 4 months. It goes very quickly. It's a fast moving story. And I started with one line and built on it from there. And everybody so far is pretty excited about it. So you yanked my other book out of the way and said, this is the book you want. Because we do not want your Shannara fans to be reading some second-rate book right out of the gate of moving from Shannara to something else. So that's what happened.
And this is you guys are going to be so excited with this one. It is wonderful. Terry kept talking to me about it, and I could just hear the excitement in his voice. I'm so eager to read it, and I feel that exact same excitement. It's propulsive. It just sucks you right in. You're really going to enjoy it. So I want y'all. There's something amazing coming.
I think that with this book, the closest experience to writing a book I had was Running with the Demon. I felt really attached to that material, and I wrote it quick, and I was through it, and it felt like everything just fell into place. That's the way it was with this book too, and I have not felt that way in a long time, because usually I'm working much harder than I had to work on this one. But sometimes the stories don't move quite as fast either, and this one moves very fast. So I just had that strength of certainty that I had something here that was going to be well appreciated. And when I gave it to Judine first, and she read it, she said, this is really good. And I said, yeah, you like it? Because usually she says, yeah, good job. Now you want dinner? No. So, it was very encouraging. And then Ann Sybil and now you have both liked it very much. And it's very rewarding when that happens, because there are different degrees of appreciation, and nobody's going to come up and say, well, your book sucks. Why don't you just go, start all over again and go home? We try to avoid those moments if possible.
Yep. So I want to just, close by saying, I know you and Judine have always said that you guys have the best fans in the world. And I've worked with a number of different authors, 8 years in the business. I can definitively and without reservation confirm that you are correct. Your fans are incredible. And what I love best is the generational nature of it, that I can't tell you how many times I've seen generations of readers come up with books passed down from grandparents to kids to grandkids. Have you ever had a 4-generational run yet?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It hasn't happened often, but I've lived long enough that I would, before the COVID thing, I was starting to see more and more of that happen. And in different families, they're very good about passing books down from one generation to the next and recommending something they think everybody should read. So that's always very encouraging. And I feel like that's what you should do in your family, is you should introduce the next generation or even the generation after that the stories that you felt were wonderful. And they may not be interested, but at least they have the chance of doing that. And when they come out like that and are that appreciative, it's really very, very heartwarming indeed. Very good. And
So
I do have the best fans in the world. They don't bring me bats' heads or anything.
No, you really do. So is any quick message you'd like to say to your fans, since we have so many of them assembled here today, before I throw this back to Sean?
Well, you know, I guess I would say something like, this may be, I don't know, this may be not PC, but if you were here, I'd kiss every one of you and say, thank you for the support. Thank you for the love. Thank you for reading my books. And meeting all of them over the years at one point or another, for not all of them, I suppose, but most of them, I think, has been extremely rewarding. And they are a second family to me now.
Thank you so much, Terry. It's been a genuine pleasure to share this day and this moment with you and this series for whatever part I've been part of it. So I'm going to throw it back to Sean and thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Terry, too.
I actually,
so a lot of you're posting like crazy in the chat. We love that. It's fantastic. Keep that up. Right now, though, we're going to unveil a special video, the first of several that we have for today. We hope you enjoy it, and stay tuned for after the video, because after the video, we have a very special guest joining us. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Sabaa Tahir, and I'm the author of the An Ember in the Ashes quartet, and I'm here to talk about Terry Brooks and what a huge impact he had on my life. First, as a little kid, growing up in the middle of nowhere, California, discovering sort of Shannara and finding this beautiful, wonderful escape into fantasy that I really needed at the time. And second, as a baby author who hadn't been published yet and who met Terry at an event. And he was so encouraging of my work, and he gave me the best advice I've ever gotten about writing, which was to always put the writing first. And I don't know, Terry, if you know that your books really have changed the trajectory of my life. I would never have written without them. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your stories, for the gift of your stories, and for everything that you've given both readers and authors over the years. It's an incredible legacy.
Hi, Terry. It's Karen Russell. This is Ada Starling Perez, who you met in utero last year at our event. And I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations. This is a really momentous time. This is Oscar, our son, and these are your future readers. I can't wait for them to start with the Sword of Shannara and discover that universe like I did. It's always going to be beginning for someone, even though I know this series has drawn to its conclusion. And thank you so much. You really set up my imagination. You showed me what writing can be and do, and just gave me some of the most pleasurable hours of my life, and I know that's true of millions of readers. I'm really excited to see how things wrap up for Shannara, and sending you a lot of love.
Terry, Philip Pullman here. It must be 25 years now since I was touring or on a pre-publication tour for the Golden Compass, and we met for the first time. I was so struck by the way that you and Judine made me welcome, and later on when Jude was touring with me, made the two of us welcome. I remember wonderful dinners, feasting on salmon and discussing pretty well everything we could about the book trade, which was then reasonably healthy, and it's still reasonably healthy where your books are concerned, and long may that remain the case. Terry, you're a fine writer and a good friend, and I wish you very well. All our love from Jude and me to you and Judine. Bye now.
Hi, I'm Peter V. Brett, author of the internationally best-selling Demon Cycle series from Del Rey Books. But if not for Terry Brooks, I might be doing something else with my life. Back in 1985, when I was 12 years old, my father got very frustrated that all I ever wanted to read was comic books. So he went to our local library and went into the fantasy section. He remembered that I liked reading The Hobbit, and so he picked a book pretty much at random, came home, tossed it on my bed, and told me to read it. That book was The Wish Song of Shannara by Terry Brooks, and I fell in love with it. I love the characters, I love the setting, I love the magic system, and from then on, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a writer. I went on to read all of Terry's other books as the years went by, and you can imagine how incredibly proud I was when I had my first book published with Del Rey, and the author who first blurbed it was Terry Brooks. Congratulations, Terry, on finishing the Shannara series. It's an incredible achievement, and I am so lucky to have a chance to let you know how much you've meant to me over the years. Thank you.
I see a familiar face lurking in the background.
Well, here I am, yes.
And you
Mr.
know what?
Brooks.
You are the prototype for me of the kings I've admired over the years, and you have in fact played at least one wonderful king in the
I have.
Shannara, and I appreciated that very much. I think you did a brilliant job, and now you're fixated in my head as Eventide. And how are you?
Well, pretty good. I'm just recovering from my, well, not recovering from, I'm just finishing my second quarantine because I was filming in Scotland a couple of weeks ago, and so I'm back on the Isle of Man where we have no COVID, and tomorrow I rejoin society. I can take off the unclean sign and return to humanity.
Well, I was looking at your biography not too long ago, and I saw that you, of course, as many people know, were in a series of lesser pictures. I think you played a dwarf in Lord of the Ring. Can't remember his name or anything. I think you were. I remember you. I remember you so well from the Indiana Jones series. Really, that was one of my. You were one of my favorite characters in that show. It's a case of what. Latching onto not the main character, but to somebody else that you felt was played an important part. And I'll never forget that.
Terry, did I actually tell you why I did the Shannara Chronicles thing?
You did. I don't remember that you did.
All right. Well, when it was put to me that I should be playing an elf king, I seized on the moment. I said, yes, of course. Basically because I wanted to be able to broadcast to the world this memorable event. I wanted to say, from dwarf to elf king, eat your heart out, Orlando Bloom.
He hasn't recovered yet, I don't think.
Oh, I don't think he ever will. No. I mean, that's really from dwarf to elf king. That is really a trajectory few men could travel. You know,
it is true. Well, you and I have had some fine conversations during the time of the Shannara Chronicles and at a few places like Hawaii and some conventions since then. And those have been most illuminating and such fun. It's always great to talk to somebody who's so well read.
Well, you are a joy to know, Terry, and I loved that little book you sent me about writing. I read it quickly and thought, and then a week or two later, I thought, let me look at that again. I must have read it 3 or 4 times, and each time, its wisdom strikes me. And one of these days, I must obey the precepts. So you're writing, and is it a new direction or is it a new venture or?
It is fantasy. Number one, so I'm not moving outside familiar ground. I'm not doing medieval fantasy this time around. I'm doing something more contemporary, although it is not in this world. Might be, but we don't know that. So it's sort of familiar in that regard. It is a first contact novel, but the first contact is not between men and aliens. It is between men and the Fae. And I have drawn on my Welsh studies in which to develop that backdrop. So it is that, and it is about finding your place in the world, and it's about what do you do when you have no idea even who you are, and how do you find your way there. So I think that it will touch a lot of bases. In this particular book, the humans are not particularly nice people. But then I live in the United States, you know. As it happens, the government in particular is very treacherous. So I thought, what the heck, I'll tap into that for a while and see where it goes. And I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So we'll see. We'll see if the readers agree, but I think they will.
What are you reading at the moment?
Oh my gosh. I'm reading so many different things. I'm reading a lot of fantasy, of course, awful lot of good fantasy out there, both in adult and young adult areas. An awful lot of I was talking about this the other day in a Zoom event, and saying that in my time, no self-respecting teenager read young adult. But now I am one of those adults who does read the young adult fantasy and finds it to be filled with excellent writers. Here is one right here. It's called The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, who I do not know at all, but this book is incredible. And it's very different than anything I've read before. And I'm always looking for that experience too. Now, what are you doing with your spare time, or do you have any spare time? There on the Isle of Man.
Well, I am actually setting up a little film studio here, and we have our first gig. I'm doing 16 2 to 2.5 minute bites of commentary on certain episodes of Pilgrim's Progress, a book I suspect that you probably read.
I think I was mandatory at one point in my English career.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Are you still, oh, I'm sorry, please go on. What else?
No, after you.
No, I just wanted to say, are you still reading the Shannara books every night like you told me you were doing there for?
Trust me. The progress has been diverted slightly. I have a new book, the only biography of a man called Pertinax, who was an emperor, a very short-lived emperor, who really rose from being a slave to being an emperor. And the Praetorian Guard, having disposed of his predecessor, picked on him as just a household slave, really, well, a household thing, and decided that he would do what they told him. Actually, he was remarkably intelligent and remarkably wise. He modeled himself on oh dear me, the golden Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
And it's one of the great what ifs of history. What if 3 months into his reign, he had not been murdered? What direction would the Roman Empire have taken? It's rather interesting. I planted that deliberately like a worm in your brain.
This is a little like listening about Claudius as successor to Caligula.
Yes.
Nero.
Yes.
And what happened there with him being considered to be half senile and so old that he could pose no danger to the empire, and the Praetorian Guard got rid of Nero and put him on the throne.
Yes.
So, any rate, are you Are you going to be doing any traveling back to New Zealand?
Well, I'm hoping to. I haven't seen my family for about 8 months now, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get there. But it is as though we have suddenly gone back 50 years in terms of communication.
Yes.
The airline, the lady who was organizing my travel has been laid off by her company. It's been passed over to somebody else. The company that was actually booking the travel said, John, yeah, we can't get you from Dublin, but if you can get to Cork. I said, well, there are no flights between here and Cork or Dublin. And everything is now slowed down, you know, whereas you could just pick up the computer and go press, ticket bought and all that sort of thing. These days, are they actually going to fly on that day? Wait a minute, the government is talking. I mean, it is, we're suddenly back in 1955 and effectively, there are no working computers for organizing things.
No. Well, it's a brave new world. I've already decided that my touring as a book author is going to take some drastic changes, no matter what happens with at the end of this thing, because I was already looking at staring 80 in the face, and I decided that the skipping about from town to town, from airline to airline, from one fast food place to another had reached its tolerance point, and it's time for me to step back and let the younger folks do that. And I will simply be a surprise guest or whatever, very much like yourself, sir. Yeah, whatever convention you're on. But I know that at some point conventions will be back on in a non-virtual way, and you and I will meet up, and I'm going to make it a point to search you out.
Well, so we shall see each other again, I hope, and I hope we can meet up in Hawaii one of these days again, as you know.
That for sure. And I think I have to get I have to get a tie to replace the other one if I can't find it. So
Brooks, listen, let's cut to the chase now. You know, I've got a complaint to make. You know, why is there not a Shannara tree tie? Why is there not an exclusive silk-made tie that I can wear that says Brooks wrote this thing and I am wearing it?
Well, I thought that the tie companies would come running after the success of the TV show, but so far they have not done that. And as a result, I've had no offers for ties or actually much of anything else in the Shannara world. So that's actually the reason I'm not writing anymore, but don't tell anybody. I've just decided, well, you know, nobody cares about this thing anyway.
Yes.
So I'll just move on and do something else. And maybe I can get somebody that will make a tie of the new book.
Yes.
Of course, that wouldn't relate to you in quite the same way.
No, quite, I think.
I'll tell you what, if we get our long-awaited movie made of something, doesn't matter what, does it? But something, you will be first on my list.
Yes.
Ron, it's time for us to make another movie together. And you can be a king if you want. We'll get a role in there. But perhaps you'd like to be a prince, or perhaps a dark prince.
Well, if I can lower the tone of the meeting and just give you the old adage: once a king, always a king, but twice a knight's enough. Sorry, we can edit that. We can cut that out.
We're not editing it. We're not editing it out. That's it. That's
Terry, you're a joy to know. You're a great writer. You're a good man, and you are. And one of the great things about you that I personally love, because in my own profession, I revere the same impulse. You love your audience. You care for your audience and your reader. And those who do that, in the end, win the audience and win the readers.
Back at you, John. That's who you are, too. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take
God
care.
bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hang in there if you can.
That was special guest JRD. We love that, right? That was great. So excited that he could join us today, and just based upon the chat, looks like he was a hit. We're happy that that happened. And thank you for everybody that put that together. That was fantastic. One note I want to make about the chat. I've noticed it's happened a couple times with a couple people, but some people are only chatting towards the panelists. If you want your comment to be seen by everybody, you need to change your little thing, your little drop-down menu to all panelists and attendees. That's your one little note for the day. And here we come with another video break. And then after the video, we're going to do some trivia. And we will reveal the trivia link that you'll use to answer the questions. And that's coming up here in a couple minutes. But first, a video. Thank you.
Well, hello, Terry. You've been a great friend to me and my family, and an inspiration in how you care for your readers. Remember that one time in Atlanta when a friend tracked us down in the basement parking garage? You patiently talked to him and signed all these books. By the way, it's always multiple books, never a single copy. You have inspired multiple generations. Congratulations. Here's to celebrate you, Shannara, and the publication of The Last Druid.
Hi, Terry, and all of Terry's fans. My name is Betsy Mitchell, and I was Terry's editor for 10 years, starting in 2002 when I became editor-in-chief of Del Rey Books. I'd never met Terry up to that point. Of course, I knew him by his reputation. #1 New York Times bestseller, flagship author, the entire Del Rey list, no pressure. But as it turned out, the first manuscript we worked on together wasn't even a Shannara book, but Terry's writing memoir, Sometimes the Magic Works. And reading that manuscript was like listening to Terry tell me stories about his childhood, about the incredible success of Sword of Shannara, his first book, and the crash and burn failure of his second manuscript, scandalous stories about working in Hollywood on Hook and Star Wars. Well, not too scandalous, because Terry's not a scandalous kind of guy, but they sure were fun. So by the end of that editing job, I felt that I knew Terry as a friend, and we've been friends ever since. In fact, Terry's the kind of guy who makes friends wherever he goes, and I hope a lot of you have that same opportunity. Congratulations, Terry.
I remember a funny story from about 14 years ago now. We were at a book signing, and Terry was asked by a young reader, "Would you ever let another writer take over the Shannara series?" Terry smiled and said in a very mischievous, self-effacing way, "I don't play well with others." He issued a warning even. He said, if in the far future someone claims to have found an unpublished Shannara manuscript of his in a steamer trunk in some attic, don't believe it. He didn't write it. He was very adamant. He put a period at the end of the sentence when it came to Shannara. Well, Terry, you kept your word. Here we are 14 years later. It's bittersweet, but I know you. You're the hardest working writer I've ever met. You have many more stories to tell, many more books to write. I am genuinely grateful we got to work together on Dark Grade. The real gift to the whole endeavor for me has been the friendship with you that's resulted these 14 years. I'm glad you're being celebrated today. You certainly earned it. And as I just said, I know you have more stories to tell, so I can't wait to see what you do next.
For those who don't know me, I'm Shelley Shapiro, one-time Del Rey editor. When I first met Terry Brooks sometime around, I think it was 1982, he was already a famous best-selling author, and I was an assistant editor too shy to be anything but terrified of him. I never imagined we'd become friends over the years. Although I was never his book editor, I did spend a number of years drawing the maps for a slew of his books, thus becoming both familiar with and fond of his writing, his brilliant imagination, and the vast disagreement between his lushly written descriptions and his own rough map sketches. We did laugh over some of that. His temperament, his actions, and his writing all welcomed me into his many worlds, both fantasy and the real one. And his constant presence in my world, even from afar, was one of the anchors that kept me moored to my long career at Del Rey. Shannara preceded me at Del Rey, and I retired before Terry concluded the stories of Shannara. But somehow it seems like one big, wonderful circle of life and books. Thanks, Terry.
Hi again, everyone. As you can see, Terry's touched a lot of people over the years. And, you know, when it comes to publishing, people come and go. And, you know, in that world, people people leave, people go somewhere else to work, but they all had very nice things to say about Terry. And I have a feeling we got some more special videos to show coming up here in a little bit. But now what we're going to do is one of my favorite things as a longtime fan myself. My favorite thing online is when people ask a question about the books. You know, who's this? Who's that? Does anybody remember what color eyes Eventide had? You know, those kind of questions. It's always fun. So we put together, Del Rey and I put together a list of trivia questions that you guys will be able to answer online. And I believe the Del Reyians just posted the link in the chat, and they will do that several times coming up. So you'd be watching for that link, because you can click that link and open up a browser and begin answering the questions now if you want. You will have until 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight to answer those questions. I took a question from each Shannara series. So just because I felt like we're celebrating Shannara, we're going to celebrate all of the books. I happen to think they're fairly easy. I'm hoping that they're easy, because I really want you guys to enjoy and have fun with this. And there will be a couple winners at the end of this. I think we're going to give away two prizes that will be randomly drawn from the people that have answered the questions correctly. So as I said, you have until 9 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Pacific tonight to answer those questions. And then the two winners will actually be pulled tonight, I believe, and will be notified. And then once I know their names, I will actually post on the website and on social media to let you all know at least the first names of the people who won. So, so I guess we can start and get this going. And I think the first slide is up at the moment. And this is from the original trilogy. This should be fairly easy for those of you who love that first trilogy. But the question is, who imbued the Sword of Leo with its magic? That's all I'm going to say about that. And it's okay for you guys to answer in the chat. This can be a community event if you like. I have no problem with that. The more the merrier, I say. The one thing I will say is that this question comes from The Wish Song of Shannara, and it's one of my favorite books. I find it to be a masterpiece in every single way. I love the reason why Terry wrote it. And it has one of the more heartbreaking moments in all of the books that Terry has written. And I still can't read that particular moment without getting teary. I hope you all feel the same way about that too. So here's the first question. Who imbued the Sword of Leo with its magic? Actually, here's a question for you guys in the chat. Do you pronounce it Leah or Lee? See, look at all you people chiming in. I love it. That's so great. Oh, there's a Lay in there. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, there's Leah, there's Lee, there's Lay. All right, that's question number 1. We can go to question number 2, I suppose. This question is from the Heritage of Shannara series. You're going to have to forgive me too, because I did not take a question from First King of Shannara. I felt like that's kind of part of the first 3 books. So, so in the Heritage series, this is actually a trick question, and there is no way for you to get it wrong unless if you say he didn't lose an arm. Which arm did Walker Bow lose to the Sphinx? And I say that there's really no wrong way to answer that, because I believe there might be several different answers to this based on the text.
Hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
I think a trickier question would have been to say, which arm did he lose in the book? And what about the cover?
Oh, that's a good question. You guys hear that from Terry? That would have been a better question. Which arm did he lose in the book? And then which arm is he shown as being lost in the Keith Parkinson painting that graced the Druid of Shannara?
I will say that that was where I decided that any further physical problems with the characters were going to have to be monitored very closely.
I believe that. I've heard you say that before. It's always tough. It's always tough giving a character, you know, a particular physical attribute and remembering exactly what it is. You know, eye color all the way down to losing an arm. All right, so there's your second question, and you guys can feel free to put in there which arm is on the cover of the Keith Parkinson painting. Which, by the way, Terry owns that painting, and I love that painting so absolutely much. It's a beautiful painting. He has it hung in his house. Yeah. Actually, Terry, why don't you talk a little bit about Keith Parkinson?
Oh, well, Keith, very talented, heck of a guy, passed away way too young. I think we would have still had him doing the covers if he hadn't gotten sick. But I met him, but only once, and so of course hang on here. The host reminded me it's a really good idea if I put myself on my video here.
Ah!
There. Is that better?
There you are. I see you, sir.
Okay. Anyway, Keith was very talented.
Oh. Oh no, did we lose Terry?
Am I not there?
Oh, there you are. Okay. We're having a storm in the Pacific Northwest, so you have to forgive our internet. It can be a little glitchy.
We're having a storm in the Pacific Northwest about every other hour.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. The last 2 or 3 months, it's been storm. We've lost power constantly. So if I disappear for some reason, that it will be that rather than the people with the torches coming to get me.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll just bring JRD back, and he can finish it all up for us.
How much did you pay John to say those nice things?
Yeah, yeah. You got to send him a check.
I'm worried about the, you know.
All right, let's move on to the next.
None of those people like me that much, Jimmy. It was
Yeah,
scary.
right.
But I think I'll take the video and watch it every night.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, this one is from The Voyage of the Jurl Shannara. And it's right in the first book, Ilza Witch. Who taught the Ilza Witch the dark arts of magic? This one should be a really good one for you guys, especially those of you who love that trilogy. I actually love that trilogy a lot, mostly because we got airships, and I love the airships. I love traveling from the Four-Lands out into the Blue Divide and going to all those islands, and it's so good. But yeah, the Ilza Witch is one of, I guess you would call her the antagonist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of that trilogy. I think she's one of your best characters that you've created. And that was the first book that she's featured in. So.
Yeah, she shows up in about 9 different books, I think, altogether.
Yeah, you talk about it a lot, but you want for Shannara Con, do you want to talk about what Grianne Omford kind of means to you and why you gave her so much time on the screen?
Well, I suppose that I should talk about the fact that I'm usually writing about something that troubles me about the world at large. So in this case, I was troubled by the fact at the time there were an awful lot of men of the cloth, as it were, transgressing and then seeking redemption for all sorts of bad things. And without going into specifics, I just felt like that it took more than saying, I'm sorry, to be forgiven. And to gain redemption, you have to go through some fire to get to that point. And even then, maybe not. And I wanted to find out how deeply you could transgress. How many of the 10 commandments can you break and still come back and find forgiveness? Not in the biblical sense, but in the real world sense. So that was what I was doing with Grianne, who was, of course, had killed numerous people and was a very bad person, but who had also been badly used. And so was it possible for her somehow to gain redemption? And in the first book, she progresses from being an assassin to being the head of the Druid order by the end of the book and the beginning of the next. So there was a good chance there to look at her from all these different perspectives and see, as a reader, how you would feel about this. Would you forgive her for what she had done? Had she earned her redemption? And if so, how much? These are the kinds of things I'm always looking at, just the same way I was looking at the environment and in the Heritage series and so on. I think this is why people identify with fantasy for the most part, is they find it more intriguing when it reminds them of the real world, when there are real world issues being discussed and investigated by your characters in this fantasy situation.
I agree with everything you just said, but I don't know if, I think I speak for a lot of your fans. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you for what you did to Walker in that series. That's all I will say.
Yes, that's true. Well, you know, I think that's kind of the thing that that people remember, is the characters that you love are put through the fire, and you remember how they do. How do they come across? And in some cases, they're successful, and in some cases, they're not successful. And this, again, is true about the real world. Some of the people we admire the most turn out to have feet of clay. Some of them actually perform incredible stories, or have incredible stories about how they've overcome their difficulties and how they've come to be something more than just what they seem to be at first.
Right. All right, next question. This question is taken from, let's see, which one is that? That's from, I'm blanking on the series title. Why am I blanking on the series title? It's from Jarka Roos.
Jarka Roos. From that book, no, the series title was, see, we...
Yeah, we both are. I'm wiped out from shipping books. You're wiped out from moving. Okay, I'll just read the question because everybody else knows the answer. High Druid of Shannara, that's right.
High Druid of Shannara, that's
all right. What
that was great.
Yeah, that's right. What dark place did mutinous druid, is it Shade Aru? That's how I pronounce it.
Shade Aru.
Yeah, exile Ardrees Gran Omsford. As you can see, we kept Gran here because Gran is in this next trilogy after Gerald Shannara. So I really liked what you did in this particular trilogy, especially when it comes to the Tanaquil. So I'm going to ask you a question real quick. You have two major trees in your work, maybe three if you count Willow in Landover.
Yeah, well,
what is your fascination with trees? Is it a fantasy trope-ish kind of thing that you happen to like, or?
Magical trees are a constant in mythology throughout history and in most countries. They serve one formula. We remember the Ents from Lord of the Rings. There was an important tree in the Arthur legend, several trees actually that played an important role. And all through classic fantasy, you see trees being a part of mythology, and it is a part of regular mythology as well as the legends that we're told. And I'm fascinated with trees. I envision trees, and there's a new book called The Overstory in which they explain how it is that trees move. Trees don't just stay in one place, they move. How can that be?
Treebeard. We know Treebeard. We got JRD on right now. Treebeard.
That's right. And do you know that he was the voice of the Ent?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And
now I did not know that. I only knew him as Gimli, and he had played another role. So that was important to me to hear he had done that. I have a great voice. Yeah. Anyway, so trees, and one of them is the Tanaquil, of course. And I was exploring what would happen if the tree imbued the human, in this case, with the magic, and playing up the role, the belief I have that you pay a price for any use of magic. Any magic you receive, you pay a price, and that's what happens with the Tanaquil and the Omsford, that tree or magical creature helps. And that to me is that's kind of a constant in all my work.
Right. All right. Next question for trivia. what set of elf stones did Redden Ohmsford use against the Witch Wraith? Should be fairly easy for you guys.
Yeah, I didn't get around to naming all those elf stones, did I?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question about that in a little bit because honestly, there's been a number of questions that have popped up in the Q&A for Shannara Con that people want to know. So I'm not going to put you on a hot seat when it comes to what the other elf stones do. But what I will say is, you know, there was a possibility of those stones showing up at a later date.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if one day perhaps you might do that.
Well, I considered it. I left it open-ended because we know that there are 5 or 6 different sets of elf stones, as I recall, and we only explained a couple of them in terms of what they were used for, and not anything about the others. So I left that door wide open for myself or someone else to someday write about and say, well, this is what this particular set of elf stones can do. Because they've been, you know, nobody even knew there still were other elf stones other than the blue elf stones until we got to whatever that, not the last quadrilogy, but one of the ones right before that determined. And I guess it was, anyway. So then we found out that there were other elf stones and that they could necessarily be brought out of the forbidding. So.
Yeah. All right. So next question. Oh, I do have one quick question though for you, based kind of on that too. The world of fairy. You wrote in Dark Legacy of Shannara kind of some letters that kind of highlight what life was like during the time of fairy. I liked those letters that you wrote in that series. I thought those letters were amazing. It gave you a glimpse into that far, far, far forgotten world. Have you ever thought about writing a book and set in that fairy during that time?
Another doomed love story.
Yes, it was a doomed love story.
Well, you know, I've had a lot of requests to write about that time, and I have successfully fought it off, mostly because it means undertaking a huge new effort that I'm not sure I want to be the one who does. So I just put that little bit in as a kind of a tease about the whole thing. I would, if I went back to it, perhaps consider doing something from that time period. It's obviously a good period to be writing about because we know that at some point there was this war between the evil fairies and the good fairies or whatever. And it had some kind of the resolution that most people know about, where the bad fairies were all locked away in the forbidding, and along with a bunch of good fairies by mistake, as the way these things go, and that the good fairies then basically faded away for centuries. So yeah, there's a lot to where it could go. I just don't know that I'm going to be the one to do it, because now, of course, I'm off on something else and trying my hand at that.
Which I'm reading right now, and it's great. I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for the readers to read it. I can't wait to see Del Rey's plans for it, cover, publicity, everything, because it's going to be good. This is going to be fun, guys. It's really good.
You worked on me long enough to get that manuscript, and I wasn't too good about getting it to you, but at least you finally got it.
I have it now. All right, so let's see. I decided to skip the Defenders of Shannara because mostly because I didn't feel like there was an Ohmsford in that series.
No.
So I went to the next one, which is the one we're in right now, The Fall of Shannara. And The Fall of Shannara starts with the Black Elf Stone. A lot of you have read it. Some of you might be reading it now that the Last Druid is published. So this question might be hard for some of you who have not started the series yet, but I'm sure people in the chat will help you out. So what Westland city did Druid Drisker Ark settle in after he left Paranor? And I see people are already posting it, and that's great.
I know.
Do you know?
I remember that one. That's recent enough that I can remember that story.
I will just say that the cottage that Drisker Ark eventually settles in the Westland is my future dream retirement home.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad.
You know, he has a porch, he has a rocking chair, you know, he has books. I mean, he literally he has like a fire pit in the back. He has everything that I kind of want.
I actually have those things because, you know, I'm up there where I can justify myself, if not retired, as being ready to retire. So I have a porch and a rocking chair and a fire pit, and go out there and hang out for a while.
Yeah, I like your fire pit. It has a beautiful view. So, okay, so here we go. We're going to, that was the last question for the first round. We're going to return with the second round. The questions are a little bit harder, but not much harder. I don't think any of you will have too much of a problem with it. And those of you who don't will help the others and it'll be fine. But for right now, we're going to take a video break for another video. And I have no idea who's popping up now because I have not seen this video. And we'll be back in a little bit.
When I should have been paying attention in class. Terry, I've got a bone to pick with you. I got a D when I was 13 years old in geometry. Why? Not because I didn't know how to find the area of an isosceles triangle, which I still don't know, but because I was reading Sword of Shannara when I should have been paying attention in class. Your books helped spark a love of fantasy for me that I guess culminated in me becoming an author as well. And throughout my journey of the last couple of years, you've offered advice to me, you've told me to trust the process, you've opened up your home, yours and Judine's home, and you've taught me how to do things with grace, I think. And here's to many more years, and to many more years of books, more tales to tell, and more worlds to explore. Love you, man.
Hi, I'm Michael J. Sullivan, and I want to congratulate Terry Brooks on completing his series at long last. I just want to say that I remember reading his book back, I think, 79 or 80, when it was illustrated by the Hildebrand brothers, and thinking, this is what I want to do, be an artist or a writer. So thanks, Terry.
Let me tell you a story about Terry Brooks. It was Gen Con 2015, and they put us at a signing table together. Now, back then, I was a pretty new writer, so my line was like 4 deep, and Terry's line was like 4 hours deep. So, needless to say, I was pretty intimidated. After all, that's Terry Brooks over there. But then Terry came by, and he sat down, he started hanging out with me, and he introduced me to all his fans, and he was so generous with his wisdom and time. It was so cool. So after my hour was up, I just kind of hung out for 3 more hours. And let me tell you something. Terry did not get up from his chair until everyone in his 4-hour line got their autograph. I mean, Terry, your books taught me so much about storytelling and writing, but you taught me so much about what it meant to be a good professional. So thank you. Congratulations on The Last Druid. I cannot wait to read it.
Hi, Terry. It's Jim Rollins here, or Jim Clemens, whatever my name happens to be. I've got the prized book of my collection here. Normally I just pull it up on my shelf back there, my signed edition of Sword of Shannara. I read this in junior high for the first time. It was one of my favorite fantasy books. I remember reading this as the sun was coming through a window, and I actually got sunburned a little bit because I didn't want to stop reading. Always a huge influence for my own writing, so much so that I ended up meeting you at the Maui Writers Conference, and because of your introduction to your editor, I ended up with my first fantasy series with Del Rey. So not only are you a big influence, you are the reason why I write today and am published today. So congratulations on the completion of the Shannara series. I know you pronounce it differently, but you're wrong. It's Shannara. That's the way it should be pronounced. So again, congratulations. I look forward to reading the final volume. Thank you very much.
Hey, Terry, it's Pat. I don't even know where to start talking about how fond I am of you. Of course, I've been a fan for forever. And then when I finally got to meet you, that was even better because you are so much kinder than I ever would have dared to hope of an author who is one of my favorites. You blurbed my book You know, way back in the day, that was such a leg up for me. You've helped out my charity, World Builders, in such generous ways. I could talk for an hour about how much I love you, but there just isn't the time. Congratulations and thank you so much.
All right, we're back. There's a couple more writers there. You know, it's pretty clear to see that Terry has influenced a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I know I'm one of them. You're watching other professional writers right now. I know, you know, they all have the best things to say about Terry. It's true. Those who have met Terry know that he is an honorable guy, an upstanding guy, nice guy, unless if he hasn't eaten for the day. And then he turns into the morgue hour, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, we're gonna go into our second round of trivia. Here we go with second round of trivia. And this should be pretty fun. These three are a little bit more difficult. And the first one I think is probably the more difficult one of the three, but we'll see. So what character in the Druid of Shannara might have had the wish song, but we never find out for sure? This is he's a secondary character in the Druid of Shannara, and that takes place in the Northland. So that gives you a little bit of a clue there. Some of you may have to even Google this just to see what characters are in that book. But I'm kind of excited to see. And actually, this character eventually has a terrible demise at the hands of the Urdas. There, I'll give you a little hint. Since I don't see the chat. I don't see the chat busting out with the name. Oh, there's somebody. Somebody almost got. Ah, there's somebody might have got it. There you go. I see people writing the right answer. Anyway, I loved this character. He he was trapped in a really bad situation he couldn't get out of. And yeah, so that's question number one. Let's go on to the next one. For those of you who grew up reading the books in the 80s and 90s, there was a Shannara video game. Yes, there was. And the Shannara video game told kind of a new story set between Sword and Elfstones. And if you remember, Will Ohmsford and Elfstones was not Shay's son. So there's a middle Ohmsford there that only the video game had. So the video game, I think you can actually even download it now for free online. You can't buy it any longer, but it was a fun kind of puzzle piece kind of game where you had to solve puzzles to move on, and you were trying to reforge the Sword of Shannara. It was fun for the time. Those of you who love your World of Warcraft now might not like it, but it was fun. And I remember my box came with the DVD, or it came with the CD-ROM, and it came with a paperback copy of Sword of Shannara, and it had a red cover on it. And I still have that here somewhere. But anyway, so what is the first name of the Ohmsford in 1995 Shannara video game? And then we'll go to the next slide. And here's the last question of the day. I wanted to include something from one of the short stories. Terry wrote several Shannara short stories at Del Rey Published. And I really wanted to highlight those. Those short stories, by the way, are going to be published and collected in a new hardcover ebook, audiobook coming out in March called Small Magic. So when you guys finish The Last Druid, I highly recommend you go pre-order Small Magic, because Small Magic has all of Terry's short work in one spot. And it's a perfect place for you to read this particular short story. But what is the highest honor a rock troll can receive from his community? And we've only gotten to know a handful of rock trolls in the Shannara series. So this one probably won't be too difficult to figure out, but it's definitely, he's one of my favorite characters. And oh, my cat wants to say hi to everybody. So that wraps up trivia. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're at 2:20 right here. Okay, good. We're doing okay with time. We got 10, 15 minutes left. So let's do another video break and see who else we've gotten to basically congratulate Terry on The Last Druid and Shannara Con. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh Mallerman, and I have a cool Terry Brooks story. I met him at the Chicago Comic Con. We had lunch, we had dinner. I had my lady Allison with me. He had his wife Judine. They were wonderful. And at that dinner, the Del Rey dinner, I was drinking. I'm talking to Terry. I'm getting drunk, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna read some fantasy. I'm gonna read his fantasy. And I ordered at the dinner, at the table, I ordered these, the original trilogy. Look at those. And I didn't know at the time, of course, that saying goodbye to him and Judine, that we would be vanishing into a quarantine, right? But the books arrived during lockdown, and they got me through the first half of quarantine. Super imaginative, super energized, funny, charming, scary, deep, rich. I mean, honestly, it's all like the man himself. And I'm honored to have met him, and I'm so glad that I read these first three, and I plan to continue from there. Maybe it'll get me through the rest of the lockdown.
My God, Terry, 43 years of Shannara. Congratulations, man. That is an amazing achievement. You know the effect you've had on my life as a friend, as a mentor. You know, reading your books has been such a joy to me. But I don't believe you. When I met you in 1991, you were on book tour in my hometown, and you told me then, this is my last tour. I just can't do this anymore. And you've been telling me that every year since, when you're on tour, of course. So, no, but seriously, that is an amazing accomplishment. Congratulations to you. Love you, brother.
Hi, this is Brian Herbert. I've known Terry for several years. He's one of the most generous people that I've ever met. I've been to his house, shared meals with him. When I first met him, I had a copy of Sword of Shannara under my arm, an advanced reading copy, which is very rare. And it was signed by the famous editor, Julie Lynn Del Rey. And Terry said, oh, I shouldn't personalize this one to you. I should just sign it because that's a very rare and valuable copy. So he only signed that, but he did personalize many other books for me. And he also told me the right way to say the title is Shannara, not Shannara, which reminded me of a conversation I had with Ray Bradbury. Somebody else had mispronounced his famous book title as 451, and he said, no, it's Fahrenheit 451. So all the authors have a way they want their titles pronounced. Congratulations, Terry, on the final book in your wonderful series, and I wish you all the best in your next project, whatever that is.
Hey Terry, Christopher Paolini here. Congratulations on finishing the Shannara series. That is an amazing accomplishment. I can't even imagine working on a series for so long, not to mention all of the other books you've written over the years. It really is awesome. For everyone else watching, Terry is just an amazing, awesome, kind guy. And I was fortunate enough to meet him at my very first convention, which was San Diego Comic-Con back in 2003, 2004. And Terry was wonderful enough to just take me aside, take me under his wing, give me some really great advice about writing and life and just what being an author means. And he's been kind enough to provide me with advice and feedback over the years as well. So Terry, a big, big thank you. And I always remember the one thing you said, which was, you know, you don't worry when people ask you to sign books, you worry when they stop asking you to sign books. In any case, you should feel immensely proud of what you've accomplished, and I can't wait to see what else you write and create in the future.
Hi, everybody. I'm back here emceeing Shannara Con. Thank you for your patience, especially when it comes to question 9 on our trivia game. Apparently, it's only taking numbers. It's not taking words, so letters. So what we're planning on doing there is you can enter in the number 42 or any number you want. You can enter in any number and we'll just honor it. because that's what we do. We honor that. So no worries about that. You can put a number and it will be totally fine. In the meantime, let's see, we got our trivia done, which is great. I hope you guys had fun with that. And I think we're going to bring, we're going to bring Terry on here in a second. Maybe we'll take a couple questions too, if we have time. But first, I just want to say thank you everyone for attending Shannara Con. This is something that we wanted to do, especially having to go into quarantine with COVID. Most publishers are not sending their authors on tour. And so we had to do something to celebrate this final Shannara book. And I think we've managed to do a pretty good job with it. I hope you have enjoyed it as well. And for now, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to, oh, by the way, I should also say that we're going to have 2 winners for trivia tonight. Now that the trivia is done, 2 winners tonight. You have until 9 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Pacific to put in your answers. So with that, what I think we shall do is we'll try to get Terry back on, and we will have a little discussion.
I think
There
I'm
he
back.
is.
Boy, that was
Yay.
surreal. You
Yay.
know, I thought it was the gods. I thought the gods said, "You don't belong on this show, and I've heard enough of this nonsense. We're just cutting you off right now." And just like that, I was off. And I thought, okay, well, you know, I had a pretty good run there for half an hour or 45 minutes, and I'll just watch the rest of this and see what happens. So maybe I don't have to say anything else. I just
I can't carry this. I can't carry this on my own, Terry. You have to be here.
You're doing a great job, Sean. I am impressed.
I was sweating there. I was sweating. I'm coming back.
I'm back. I will participate. I promise.
All right. So yeah, we got a couple more minutes left here to go. And I thought maybe I'd throw a couple questions at you that have come in from, we're not going to be able to get to every single question because there's literally 100 and
oh my God
questions. So I'm gonna randomly just scroll down through here, and I'm gonna look at one, and I'm just gonna pick it, and we'll see. Let's see. David Lacasse asks, "Is the new book fantasy, sci-fi, or another genre?"
Definitely fantasy.
All right. Good answer. Jennifer. Good answer. Well, we're gonna get through these. We're gonna get through these. Okay. Jennifer asks, "Any plans for a Street Freak sequel?"
Yo, sure.
There you go. Sure.
If they want more, they'll have to hang in there.
This is actually there's 2 questions here that people have asked repeatedly, and I'm going to get them both in. Ralston is one of them that asked that I just scrolled to here. Will there be a new updated World of Shannara book now that Terry has wrapped everything up?
I don't actually know about that. I haven't even thought about that for a while. We'll have to talk to the powers that be at the publishing company to decide if they want to issue a new one. There's a good chance, I would think, now that we're at the end of the series, or at a stopping point anyway, to bring it all together. I don't know. We'll have to see if Teresa can is still available to write any more for it.
I'm randomly scrolling through questions, and this is the one that popped up from Shona Moore, which you and I'm going to hear Judine in the background laughing. I know it. "A number of years ago, you told a story about a secret Easter bunny who visits your house each year. Are they still coming? Have you discovered their identity?"
No, you know, the Easter Bunny identity remains a deep, dark secret, and the Easter Bunny has chosen to forsake us now that we no longer live at the same residence.
Not yet.
Not yet, that's right. Easter. I think what happened this year, frankly, was it was COVID that prevented the Easter Bunny from.
He came.
Did he come?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. He came. I'd forgotten about that. I'm suffering brain damage from this COVID business. But as it turns out, the Easter Bunny did appear. And we were surprised because, of course, number one, we were still not expecting the Easter Bunny to surface.
I don't even know where I was. I can't remember.
I don't think he did it this year. I think it was last year. Go on to another question.
Another question. All right. Let's see, Tori, we might not know this answer yet, but when does the new book come out? I was already excited, but now that I know it involves the Fae, I am really excited.
I don't know.
June, I think.
Maybe June. You know, summer, who knows? I don't think we've announced a date yet. But what people should look for is the short story collection, which comes out, I think it's March 2nd or 3rd, something like that.
Yeah.
That will get them through until we get to the publication of the Fae book.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know about Small Magic kind of collects all of Terry's short fiction, and he wrote a couple new short stories that haven't appeared anywhere, including a really long novella for Word and Void. So you have that to look forward to in March.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it myself. Some of that writing is some of the best writing I've done. So I think people will be happy.
Yep. Post-COVID, once the world returns some semblance of normalcy, will you tour? Or are you saying no to touring now? Or does the publisher have to talk you into it?
Somebody has to talk me into it, I think. I like going on tour. I don't know. I mean, you know, the problem is that it saps an awful lot of energy out of you to go on tour. And I don't have that kind of energy anymore, much as I hate to admit it. I've even had to accept the fact that I may not live forever. And for years, I was pretty sure I would. But now I'm thinking maybe you won't. So what's that all about? So we'll have to see. But first, we got to get rid of COVID. And I think we may be at least a year away from that happening, maybe more.
Yeah. All right, I'll pick one more here, and then I'll throw it back to you. You can say some closing words to your fans, and then there will be a final video. First, I just want to say what an honor it is to have worked with you for 20 years. It's been a blessing in my life, both you and Judine, and I am very, very proud of you wrapping up Shannara. You did it the right way.
Incidentally, everyone, Sean has been auditioning for a number of years to become an adopted child. I think he's going overboard here in an effort to improve his status, because he has moved up the list quite a ways from where I think it was about 102 for a while there. So all these things he's saying about me, you have to take this stuff with a grain of salt.
Yeah, right. I almost cried. I almost cried right there, Terry. Come on.
Sean has been a pleasure and helped me. I can't even begin to tell you how much he's done to keep me online, in line probably would be a better way, but also to make sure that my tech sense, which is just above Luddite, survives the requirements of being on Zooms and various other forms of social media. And he's the one who reminds me, along with Judine particularly, too, hey, it's time to write something to your fans who haven't done anything for weeks. And the days when Lester Del Rey would say to me, you don't need to talk to your fans. You don't need to go on tour. You just need to stay home and write your book. People don't like it when the author comes between the book and the audience.
Yeah.
He is currently turning over in his grave, wherever that may be, at what's happened here with social media.
Yeah.
And it's a brave new world, Lester, and I'm afraid we're going to have to go with it and accept that we have to, kicking or screaming or whatever, we still have to go into it and embrace it.
Yeah.
As far as that last bit about saying something to the fans, you know, I've said the same thing over the years. I hate to say the same thing again, and yet I really should, about how important the fans have been. You write in a vacuum. You do all your work at putting a book together in very much of a vacuum. I've never been one to call up my publisher and say, would you read something I've written and tell me it's wonderful? I just don't do that. I work on my books. I make them the best I can. The validation comes when I go out on tour. There I go again. And when I get mail, email these days more, from the fans, the readers who say that this book meant something to them, or that this book got them through a tough period in their lives, or that this book spoke to them in a particular way and made something happen for them. This is what every author wants.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Good old Judine right there to tell me. And I need to particularly thank the Shannara community, who has been such a strong force in my life and has meant so much to me, and who has, the members of whom have gone to ridiculous extremes to come out and say hello, and to make sure they were there for the important things in my life, all over the United States. And have that kind of a fan base, have that community that is not only good to me, but very good, and treat each other with such respect and admiration. I just, you can't talk about something like that enough. That's what you want to see from your readers. You want to think that these are good people and that they care about each other, and they embody what I believe we should be. So I'm going to say, for them particularly, as well as for all my other readers, thank you so much. It really has meant everything to me.
And thank you.
I'm not quitting.
You're not quitting.
No.
Thank you everybody for attending Shannara Con. It was a great fun for us. I hope it was for you too. And keep your eyes on the website, because we got some things to announce coming up. So stay tuned. Bye.
My mom was an avid reader of yours. You can see her just there. I lost her a couple of years ago, and one of her last requests to me was to have your books that she'd been collecting and reading avidly for the last few years, and look after them. So here they are. There's 2 shelves of them, look. After she'd passed, I decided that I would try reading them. Didn't think I'd like them, but I fell in love with them. Carry on writing, carry on publishing, don't stop until you stop.
Hey Terry, my name is Chaz. Got to meet you a few years back at Phoenix Comic Con and got my picture taken with you. You have made an amazing impact on me. I introduced my kids to you as well, so I really appreciate you. I hope you know how much you're loved by all your fans.
I'm 56 years young because of you. I want to say thank you, and although I'm saddened that the series is ending, you've been training us like this since 1977. All things come to an end, and all new beginnings begin.
Congratulations, Terry, on a great 43-year run through the world of Shannara. I've been enjoying the book since I was in middle school when the Elf Song was out. I really enjoyed the genesis of Shannara, which took place in Seattle, where I live. Thank you.
I've been reading your book since I was 11 years old. I learned so much about how stories can teach goodness, truth, and beauty from you. Thank you for Shannara. Thank you for being a model of human decency in an indecent world. I'm your friend and fan, Anthony.
Thank you for sharing your imagination with us, Terry. I've been a fan of yours for so long, and some of my favorite memories are meeting you and Judy.
Thanks for being so open and honest with your fans, and thanks for congratulating us on our engagement.
This is Michael Joseph Tarnish-Roby shouting to Shannara Con from my home library in my brand new house where I've got the whole epic series set out. Thanks, Terry Brooks, for all the fantastic memories. Can't wait to see how it all ends.
Thank you, Terry Brooks. My name is Robert Zumbron. I met you in Boise once back in 2009, and your work is phenomenal and is what got me into reading back in junior high. Thank you for your art.
When I was 14 years old, I decided that I wanted to start reading. I read the first chapter of the Sword of Shannara, and I was immediately drawn into the world. And this book here, you, Terry, gave me the love and desire to read more.